do whatever, and it will automatically segment the recording of that
All right, we'll get started now, y'all. Thanks so much for coming. I'm Scott Nelson. This will be my doctoral recital. First thing, I'd like to get a volunteer who wants some tea. Dr. Beck, how about that? Sure. I was going to make a joke about not knowing your name later, but let's just do this now.
You can still do that.
Come on down. I'm going to have you sit up over here on the stage.
Gee, I've never done anything like this before.
All right. Good sir, here you go. Okay. So this piece is called Astral Infusion, and our two performers are Fiona Shueju and Cheng.
黄三点头。春风拂面，关公巡城。玉燕回湖。韩信点兵。敬奉乡民。茶香清甜，茶味更浓。清澈醇厚，芳香四溢。 悬壶高冲。春风拂面。玉叶回壶。近梦相鸣。茶香正浓，此是红茶。指甲留香。茶满7刻，客人该离开了。请用茶。慢慢来。下次再见。
谢谢。
I'll have you note that I'm putting on a cardigan. But more important, it has no elbow patches. Yeah, because I'm not a doctor yet. Thank you all so much for coming. I'm really excited about this. This is going to be fun. I get to talk about something that I am passionate about, and that is ASMR. So ASMR stands for Autonomous Sensory Meridian Response, and it's been described in research as a tingling sensation that starts at the top of your head and matriculates down your spine and down your back. Interesting still is that there are similar sensations from which it is distinguished. One that musicians might be familiar with is aesthetic chills or musical frisson. This is when you're listening to a piece of music or maybe experiencing a piece of art, and you are awe-inspired by this work of art or this piece of music that such that you might feel something like goosebumps or exhilaration. And it's very similar to ASMR, at least according to the research that's been done so far. The distinction is that aesthetic chills have been shown to increase the heart rate, where ASMR has been proven to decrease the heart rate. And so that's the main distinction so far. There are a few indicators that the research has acknowledged of ASMR. There are psychological indicators. These are a little bit mushy, hard to define. They're sort of a mixture of psychological indicators that have to be sort of reported by the individual experiencing them. And then there are a few physiological indicators as well. The mentioned heart rate and skin conductance as well. They're still sort of trying to prove stuff about endorphins, oxytocin, and serotonin. But when being interviewed, people who experience ASMR talk about these mixtures of emotions, like nostalgia, which is inherently sort of a complex psychological experience. Certainly a sense of intimacy or connectedness to another individual, and calmness and relaxation. So that's just sort of like the basic, that's ASMR right off the bat. More interesting, I think, is this one. This is called mukbang. Can I just get a show of hands who has heard of mukbang before? I'm not gonna, I mean, there's an age range distinction there.
What are you talking about?
So mukbang, I'm not even gonna try to describe it. I'll just show you some mukbang. How about that?
Oh my gosh.
I know what you're thinking. Why would someone do this? ASMR, in terms of its sort of like its fandom, if you will, or like the content that is created about ASMR, or maybe more accurately to elicit ASMR, is about trying to come up with experiences that produce these indicators that I mentioned before: nostalgia, calmness, interconnectedness, intimacy, and maybe even a decrease in heart rate and skin, and also an increase in skin conductance. And it's become really popular to do, in terms of content that is published online, really close miking of tiny sounds that you wouldn't normally listen to in everyday life, or at least not in an amplified way, like we just heard, unless you're a real smacker when you eat. Then that's sort of what has become popular online with ASMR content, is this amplification of small sounds. And then in an effort to get that sort of intimacy, usually this ASMR content involves a human on the other side of the screen in the video doing something. So chewing and eating can produce a sense of intimacy when in your own personal life, you might not have someone to eat with, right? So one of the theories about ASMR from 2019 is this idea of parahaptic interaction, which is an extension of a long or earlier theory, the parasocial relationship, where it's not really an actual person that you're having a relationship with, but someone on the other side of a screen, of a device, like a cell phone or an iPad or something. And so it can actually elicit feelings of belonging and having a connection with someone on the other side of the screen. And so that's the kind of content that is popular on ASMR YouTube. Mukbang is a subset of ASMR. There are other types of subsets of ASMR. But the common thing among most ASMR is the way it's produced, the type of media they use to record it and then edit it and publish it online. And the common way that has sort of become popular is this concept of binaural recording. It's this idea of a sensibly more immersive, or maybe better said, more accurately produced reproduction of the sounds that are being recorded for later listening. And so YouTubers, that word binaural started to get really popular. It's associated with higher aural fidelity. And so Amazon started selling really cheap binaural microphones, and all the YouTube content creators bought them. And now anytime you watch a YouTube ASMR video, you see this one particular microphone, which I'll show you later, that has these two white ears. It's a microphone that has two sides and there's two ears. And I'm just going to skip this slide. And the idea behind this is that, if you're recording with a normal microphone, it's picking up sound in a way that is interrupted by its own mass and matter. But it's not in the same type of mass and matter that our head has. Our head has this sort of meaty flesh surrounding our eardrums, right? And it interrupts the sound waves in certain ways. Our ears sort of funnel the sound in and even help us interpret the position or the localization of sounds that are coming at us. And so binaural recording is an effort to make the recording itself more like how we started hearing sounds in the first place for later reproduction. So you would record something maybe like with this binaural microphone that looks like a human head. It sort of starts to get at mimicking how we hear sound through our human head. So the idea with my study in my dissertation was, so if binaural is the way most YouTube content is created and consumed, with headphones I should say, then what other immersive sound technologies are there that I could try out to see how they compare to binaural recordings or binaural listening environments? What other types of immersive sound technologies might be good for eliciting ASMR? So I'm just going to talk about a couple of them, and then I'm going to start talking about my methodologies and how my study has gone so far. Just a quick background knowledge on wave field synthesis. This is distinct from binaural. The idea with this is that if I'm standing over here and you're hearing my voice, well, I'm mic'd right now, so you're actually hearing my voice through a lot of different speakers in this space. But the sounds from my mouth are reaching these seats before they're reaching those seats over there, right? And so if we wanted to reproduce what it was like for you to sit in this audience and listen to me talk from this side of the stage, for someone else who wasn't here tonight, like let's say we wanted to reproduce this for someone tomorrow, the idea with Wavefield is that you could make a large array of speakers all next to each other, positioned just so, and the idea is that the speakers that are closest to me would reproduce my sound waves earlier than the ones over there. So there would be a delay between the speakers that are closest to the sound source and the speakers that are furthest away from the sound source. And then with that speaker array, the people who are sitting in front of that speaker array would be able to sit in that sort of field of sound produced by the array and get an accurate reproduction of the time delay of my sound waves, or whatever sound waves were happening up on stage. So if there were sound waves over there, the T-set, the people over there would hear them first, and then just a little bit later, the people over here would hear those sounds. So wavefield synthesis is trying to do that. And actually what's nice is you could be anywhere within the field of that array of speakers, and you could walk around, you could move around in it, and it would sound pretty accurate to what actually happened. There's not really a sweet spot while you're in the field, but if you leave the field, like if you go way too far to the left or right or behind the speakers, the illusion is lost. So this will be one that'll pop up in one of my pieces that I do a little bit later. Another one that I thought maybe I could do is a VR piece, a virtual reality piece. The idea with spatial audio in virtual reality is that there's a 3D virtual environment, and we use things that can manipulate 3D virtual environments like game engines. Like Unreal Engine is a game engine where you can place sounds in a 3D environment, give it an X and a Y position, and also a Z position, up and down. And then someone listening back later, especially in like a virtual reality headset, should be able to locate where left and right and up and down that sound is supposed to be. And so you as a developer, you place these sounds like little Easter eggs in the scene that you've made, and hopefully the sound is reproduced accurately for the person experiencing the virtual reality piece. Yeah, let's see. Okay, so I had to come up with an idea for how I would do this. Like, what was I going to do exactly for my study? I thought that it might be cool to try to tackle some of these immersive sound technologies and compare them, and also compare them to binaural. So the idea is that I would have a control piece. I would just have people listen to a YouTube ASMR video with headphones, and specifically a YouTube video that is branded as being recorded with binaural recording technology. And then I would make pieces of art in using different immersive sound technologies like wave field synthesis or like spatial audio in a virtual reality setting. And so this is what I came up with. I would compose or craft or create 4 artworks or sound artworks that are interactive, each showcasing a different one of those immersive sound technologies. And then I would get people to come try them out. And whenever they tried any of them out, I would have them take a survey where in the survey they would rank descriptors that are often used in ASMR research to describe ASMR. And also after they participate in the survey and rank those descriptors, if I got a chance, I would want to talk to them and interview them to hopefully clear up some of the muddiness from the inherent assumptions that are made when using words, just descriptive words. So the pieces that I ended up with are, you know what, I'm going to start from the bottom. How about that? So I just talked about the YouTube video. That's just a YouTube video. The one above that we saw earlier, Astral Infusion. This was a traditional Chinese tea ceremony. And I got a lot of help from Fiona and Kahe to do it. I didn't do anything. It was just a traditional Chinese tea ceremony. But then these 3 top ones are what I call Radio Baba, a weak reference to Radio Gaga by Queen, where you put on a VR headset and you give yourself a haircut. I thought Baba sounded kind of like barber. Another piece called Tabula Rasa 2, that's where I use the wave field technology. And I'm going to talk about each of these a little bit more. And then Shoe Keeper, which is another immersive sound technology where the audience becomes the orchestra using your cell phones. And we're going to perform that one a little bit later. So first, the control. What was so control about it? Well, it was the one that most people associate ASMR with binaural and headphones. And so I just had people watch this YouTube video that had 13 million views, and it was branded as binaural, and it's an ASMR video. We're gonna watch a few seconds of it here. The other one was the wave field piece. This is called Tabula Rasa 2. What you do, and actually I have some of these set up out in the lobby here, just outside the theater. So after, if you're curious, you can go try any of them out that you want. With this one, you stand in front of an array of speakers, like the one I described earlier for you. You're placed inside that wave field, and you draw on a tablet, and the sound of pencil on paper sort of gets thrown through the wave field as you write, and the location of those sound sources are associated with your where you're drawing on the tablet. So you go to the left on your tablet, the sound goes to the left in the wave field. You go to the right on the tablet, the sound goes to the right in the wave field. So yeah, basically just doodling with wave field synthesis. And part of the art of this is a lot of ASMR content is there's sort of like a, you gotta, it's like eating mama's cooking. Like you gotta take them back to their childhood. You gotta try to give them some nostalgia a little bit. And so a lot of it, there's an entire subset of ASMR videos online that are deliberately unintentional ASMR. That like the person recording the video did not know they were being recorded and that it was going to later be used for ASMR online. And so the effort here was to make it as mundane an activity or as ordinary an activity as possible, like drawing, and something that a lot of people used to do when they were kids. Is you just sit there doodling, right? And so that was the thrust of the art with Tabula Rasa. Here's just a quick little kind of what that's like. The next one I'll talk about is the virtual reality piece. This is Radio Baba, and you basically wear now it's called MetaQuest 2 headset. That's the environment that I was programming in using Unity, and you sit down in a barber chair in the virtual reality space, and before you is a barber's workbench, where you can grab clippers, you can grab scissors, and you can grab like a hair dryer and hear the sounds of those things and manipulate them around your head. You can move your head, and the virtual reality space maintains their position within the 3D space, and so you can move your head freely, and the sound will sound like it's still coming from the same spot. And I have a quick example of that right here. Oh, I gotta go over here. Okay, and another one was the one we witnessed earlier. This is called Astral Infusion. The idea with this one is that it would not be technologically mediated, and so in some way it would be a control against all these pieces that are technologically mediated. Can you get ASMR just from an interpersonal experience, just from sitting in front of someone and making small, delicate sounds? Are they strong enough by themselves without augmenting the volume or the amplitude with the use of microphones and speakers and amplifiers? And so while all the experiences are individual, this was an individualized performance, which is not something you get to see all the time in the art world or in the music world where one person performs for you. We sort of had like a version where this whole audience was watching, but what I had done during the study was I had people come individually, sit in a room with Fiona and Kai, and they would get the performance just for them. The idea, really, I didn't compose anything. It's sort of just a recontextualization of the traditional Chinese tea ceremony as sound art, which has always been sound art, but I'm just trying to point and say, hey, everybody, look, it's sound art. And I called it astral infusion. But really, it's just Fiona and Kai who really put it all together. This is, the idea behind it is that there's sort of a traditional story that gets told, and each of the stages and steps of the tea ceremony has a purpose, and part of the story that gets told when that part of the ceremony happens. There you go. This is what's happening. I probably won't leave it all up here for you to read all this, but I will say that at the end, and I had to be taught this, though I think from hearing anecdotally, there were some people that knew about this as they were doing the piece. The sort of polite way to tell someone that the tea ceremony is over, or like to get out of my house, is to overfill their final cup of tea. And that's like without having to tell them get out of here, like that's the way to just politely signal to them, we're done now here, you can leave. Okay, so there's that. And now, this final one that I'm going to talk about is Shoe Keeper. So what's happening with Shoe Keeper is this is the one that we'll perform together here in a few minutes. I thought that, like, imagine sitting in an audience and everybody in the audience is making sounds around you. And I mean, that wasn't like a unique idea to me. This is a practice that is common in our field and even among the people that study here, doing these distributed mobile device, cell phone, speaker, network things. And the idea is that as an audience, you can all go to the same website, and the website helps you play audio files from your phone. And so each of you will become an orchestra member and perform the piece together. What are the sounds you play, you might ask? Well, that was a trick. So my partner, Alicia, works at a zoo, which I'm anonymizing, though you probably don't have to think very hard about like where that might be. And like, I think she might have come up with the idea, like, have you ever done any things with animal sounds? And I was like, I'm sure there are people that do that. But I was thinking about my ASMR dissertation, and I was like, thinking about mukbang, which I don't do frequently. But that day I was. And I was like, oh, what if we did the sounds of the animals like eating? That'd be cool. And then later I was talking to Dr. Allison, and and we had the idea to do one of these distributed mobile device networks, play the sounds of animals eating, and in that meeting we came up with Shoe Keeper. And so Alicia gave me some connections to a zoo's Board of Animal Welfare. I wrote a proposal to them. I submitted it. They said, yeah, it sounds good. And basically I got permission to go behind the scenes, which not anybody can do this. I feel pretty cool because I got to do this. But record the sounds of the zookeepers at the zoo, like feeding their animals, and I got to go with a microphone and like stick a microphone up there and get close up to their mouth while they're eating. So we've got a few of the zookeepers here that helped out with that. Hey y'all, thanks. They work at a zoo. And so we'll do the piece a little later here to hear some of the sounds I recorded. For now, let's listen to a tiger eating a mixture of meat. not cool with that. Interesting. I'd like to ask you questions. Okay, so I put these pieces together, and then I started showing them to people. I started taking the survey where I had them rank these 11 descriptors that have been found in ASMR research. You see words like exhilaration, and you're like, ASMR is exhilarating. Some of the research says so, and actually, if you look up ASMR and exhilaration on YouTube, there's a lot of YouTube videos that specifically say this is an exhilarating ASMR experience. And some of the other words that we've discussed so far tonight, like nostalgia. How do you test for nostalgia, right? And then so that's the sort of quantitative side of things. And then also I would follow up as much as I could by asking for interviews with people who experienced these pieces. And you'll see how I found this to be far more useful than the survey data, at least so far. Okay, so here's some of the data that I'll show you these. Some of the data I've collected. For example, with Chewkeeper, I've been able to perform it, I think, 3 or 4 times now. I've gotten 20 people to respond to this survey. I haven't been able to, do the stats in a way that has given me any significant relationships between any of this yet, but I'm still going to be conducting more surveys throughout May. So hopefully I get some more data just to beef up the numbers a little bit, but also hone in on some of the significant parts of this. You can see that relaxation and comfort are sort of the nice words that people don't mind saying, yeah, that was relaxing. Whereas goosebumps is a little bit more of a commitment, like, can I get goosebumps? Like, I don't want to say that I got goosebumps. And I also listed the standard deviations here, so all around 1 with the lowest being goosebumps. So people agree that goosebumps was not something they experienced with Chewkeeper, at least. I also have some data comparing the responses depending on your experience level in music. Generally the same shape as what we just saw. You can see that they together, so I'll go back to the last one. Together those 4 shapes make up this sort of average shape. Right? But you can see that relaxation and comfort across all of those was by far the most popular to say, with a little bit of a bump at nostalgia, interestingly enough, on the animal noises one. We've got Radio Baba. I only have 8 responses here, so not a lot. You can't really read a lot into this. I'm going to be hopefully exhibiting this to more people. I have it out there if anybody wants to go do it and participate in my survey and help me get more data. Tabula rasa, similar shape to Chewkeeper, 19 responses. As you get more responses, these shapes sort of tighten in a little bit because the outliers make less of a difference. The notable thing here with astral infusion is that intimacy is a lot higher. Astral infusion, you're sitting in front of someone serving you tea, so that's sort of inherently more intimate. Compare that when we see the YouTube video in a second, where a screen is dividing you, right? And here's the YouTube video. Intimacy goes down quite a bit. But what goes up with the YouTube video, only a little bit, is spine tingles. And it's really one of the only ones where those actual tingles that ASMR claims to be like, I'm about tingles, right? And actually, anecdotally, in the interviews I conducted, this was the YouTube video, which was not one of my pieces. It was just a control experience that I had people do. They said they got the strongest tingles from this piece. Even though it's like sort of like the smallest rankings out of all of them. So you can see that some of that was probably informed by these outlying values. YouTube, I think, got 15 responses. So as I get more responses here, those will tighten up a little bit too, I think. But again, nothing so far has given me any significant relationships yet. So the survey data hasn't been super useful. This is all the pieces compared together. You can see that the pieces with the fewest responses reach the widest throughout the graph. And again, as I get more responses, they'll probably start to settle in like Chewkeeper and the Tabula Rasa have. Okay, so like I mentioned, the interviews I've conducted have been more useful for me. One of the questions I usually ask in the interview is, what's your prior knowledge of ASMR? And so I've sort of compiled one of those fun word clouds. Isn't that fun? where I got sort of common responses among a lot of the interviewers. You can see there's a lot of variety here, but I think telling ones, I can't stand mouth sounds. So if you didn't like the tiger eating earlier, there's you. What do you know about ASMR? YouTube videos, nails on a chalkboard, interesting. And some people did say goosebumps, or some people claimed before experiencing anything. I don't experience tingles, kind of hard to see right here with this light. Here's the YouTube video. We get nails on a chalkboard again. Like I said, this one is really the most intense listening experience out of all of them. With most of my art pieces, I was kind of trying to focus in on the quiet, subtle sounds aspect of ASMR, where this one is just like an all-out assault because it does noise canceling, and that sort of, just the fact that you're canceling all the other noises amplifies artificially the sounds that you're hearing in your head. And so by far the most negative responses were to this one, but also some of the most intense positive responses were to this one as well. You can see hated it right there. Hated it. Exactly what I dislike about ASMR. Pressure in my inner ear. This one says, gave me TMJ, which is interesting. Okay, we've got tabula rasa, that's the drawing one, right? Sorry, I don't want to confuse you with the Argo Parrot piece. It's not tabula rasa, it's tabula rasa 2. So some of the things we got here was actually nostalgia, was one of the ones I picked up from, even though the survey, no one really said nostalgia for this one, but when I conducted interviews, people would say it reminded me of doodling when I was a kid, and that's what was nostalgic about it for me. Some people said it was their favorite one, not necessarily for the sounds, but just because the activity or the interactivity of it was what was compelling. So not a lot of sound-driven ASMR happening with Tabula Rasa 2. Radio Baba. So this one was sort of like, we got differing responses here. Some people were like, no, I didn't get anything. And in fairness, those people were usually the ones who didn't get anything for any of the pieces. Some people who got strong physical responses got it here with Radio Baba, because you can kind of like bring the sound of the clippers very close to your ear, and even that movement close to your ear can kind of produce like a someone's behind me kind of feeling, right? Like the tingle down your back. Yeah, the scissors seem to be popular. Oh, but one thing is that I think most people who tried it, and again, I've only got eight responses so far. Most people who tried it have not experienced VR before. It's like it was their first time wearing a VR headset. And they said that was so distracting as to like they couldn't really pay attention to the sounds because they were like, whoa, VR, whoa. So maybe you need to do it a few times, and then yeah. So for ChewKeeper, I have the most survey responses for ChewKeeper, but the fewest interviews because usually it's conducted in a concert setting, and frankly, I haven't remembered to go ask people about it after the concerts. So I need to do more interviews about ChewKeeper. Maybe tonight I can get some in. But certainly, as we saw in the survey, relaxing was the strongest descriptor earlier. Okay. This is the tea ceremony. People had in the interviews a lot to say about the tea ceremony. Some people got tingles the whole time. Some people had no tingles at all. People said there was a chilling effect, shivers, right? People noticed the gentle movement, and actually just watching the visual aspect of the slow and deliberate movement was comforting to them. Multiple people just said they liked the sound of the clay on clay, the top of the teapot scraping against the lid of the teapot scraping against the teapot itself. So in terms of future work, the descriptor ranking system isn't very effective so far. I mean, I'm willing to give it more chances as I collect more data. I have like 70 total responses, but again, it's only the most I have for one piece is 20. It'd be cool to have like 80 responses for each of the pieces, but it'd be cool to get 20 responses for each of the pieces too. I'll take what I can get. So a really small data set for a lot of this, but I'll just say so far the descriptor ranking system hasn't yielded any significant results. And that's why I say the interviews I've done have been far more helpful in understanding people's experience with my artwork. And yeah, I think it's just impossible in an art setting to have good testing conditions. And that's where I've been able to do this most of the time, is in like an art setting, like at a concert, or I say like, hey, come experience my series of pieces. It'll be fun. It'll be like an art gallery. So I'm like sort of couching it in this art perspective, which is just not conducive to testing conditions. And so if we were to do testing conditions, the descriptors I still think wouldn't be very helpful, but the heart rate and skin conductance measurements would certainly be helpful, I think, and that those would be a little bit more concrete than these soft ideas of psychological, complex mixtures of psychological experiences. So I'm looking forward to trying out more tests on artworks that are passive versus artworks that are interactive. The tea ceremony is interactive. The drawing piece is interactive. Radio Baba is interactive. The only one that was not interactive really was the YouTube video, where you sort of just sit there watching YouTube, right? And so it'd be interesting to try to come up with some artworks that are passive to compare maybe a little bit more closely to the YouTube videos. But I think one of the strengths in terms of the art side of all my pieces is their interaction. That's like that's what people noted about them, more so than the sounds. Okay, so we're gonna do Chewkeeper now, and then that'll be it, and we'll all take questions. So the way we do Chewkeeper, you can go to chewkeeper.squampus.com, or you can scan this QR code, assuming you have internet. If you have an iPhone, you may need to, actually you do need to turn off the physical silencer switch. You know what I'm talking about? The little physical silence switch. You gotta turn the sound on. Yeah. Otherwise it won't work. Yeah. Oh, you know what? I didn't wind it up. So whoever was first is gonna take a little bit. Oh, you know, actually, is it okay if we spread out a little bit? Is that cool? Those of us who are kind of lumped together. And Dylan, as we do this, let people sit down for a second, and then we'll turn the lights off. Oh, who's having a hard time getting on the internet? Oh, yeah. I wonder if would one hotspot be good enough for that? Let's see. If you find my phone on your Wi-Fi, it's SM something. You want to try connecting to my phone's hotspot? That's the password. All right, that's it. Thanks, y'all. I'd like to just acknowledge really quickly, we had a giraffe, rhino, and pygmy hippo, and tapir and Nyala right here. We had a donkey right there, donkey high. We had tiger over here. No, I should say that it's the zookeepers of those animals. And we had birds. There's a macaw, I think, on there. Did I miss someone? So thank you to our maybe local zookeepers. Yeah, and I'm happy to take questions. Kahe.
Okay, I have a question. So when I listen to the tiger audio recording, it sounds pretty dangerous to me, like if he was hissing or like a little bit angry. I just wonder, like when you're doing the recording, like how do you set up the mic? And does the tiger, risk to, eat the mic, or would you like to play around with the mic when you're doing the recording?
How would it look if I answered this when we have like the people here that was I in danger, Caleb?
No, you were not in danger at all.
Yeah, so they were in metal cages, and better word, stalls, thank you. And actually, we had Alicia I used our shotgun mic here from the studio, and what would happen is Caleb would drop a piece of meat down a chute, and the meat would fall on the floor, and the tiger would come really close to the bars, the metal of the stalls, and Alicia would hold the microphone towards the ground, really close to the tiger's mouth. And they were hungry, and they just wanted to eat the meat. Yeah. Kerem.
Before asking the question, if anyone watching the stream has any questions, they can comment and I'll happily read them.
Thank you.
Second question is, so while you were doing these the pieces, you use different sound reproduction techniques. Is there any sound reproduction technique that you haven't used that might be useful for ASMR?
Yeah, let's see. I'm just running through my head of all the ones that I did. Well, okay, I'll just be kind of honest. Like all of these utilize, I should say, the spatial audio and the binaural utilize this thing called head-related transfer functions. And this is basically the idea that each of us has a unique head, right? And so what you could do, and if you're getting Apple AirPods, they'll usually say, oh, you should send us some pictures of your ears, and we'll make you custom head-related transfer functions, HRTFs. And if you get an HRTF that you can use on your headphones or anything like that, you can get them custom made for your head. Because if you use an HRTF from someone else, the idea is that it won't be quite as accurate as if you had been the person there listening to it, right? And so I didn't really go into any custom HRTFs in any of these pieces. I used stock HRTFs in Unity for the virtual reality. Because the idea was that I was just going to have lots of people doing it. But if I were to go further, and this is ridiculous, but I would get custom HRTFs for each person who experiences my pieces, which is possible now with the newest version of Apple AirPods, Apple AirPod Pro 3s, where everybody can get their own custom HRTF. That would be the one that I didn't do that I wanted to. Thank you. Dr. Giger.
What is your goal with your study? Are you mostly, as you are getting these responses from your subjects, are you mostly interested in their reaction to your installation or to the immersion technology? And how would you distinguish between the two?
Yeah, I kind of set up my study to ham-fistedly do both. And that separation is sort of the issue I'm running into. Because my pieces are all doing so many different things that it's hard to control for any one of them. For instance, Tabula Rasa 2 is doing wave field. It's also testing for interaction. So it's comparing a YouTube video to the YouTube video on two fronts. It's comparing its interaction, how passive is the person who's experiencing the art, and it's also comparing it the actual sound technology. So how do I separate those two things? Well, I didn't really. I asked them questions about what was the experience like psychologically by asking them for these descriptors, and I didn't bother getting heart rate or skin conductance, which would have been the more useful and cold and analysis of someone's experience. So the goal of the study was to try to create art and to see if that art would elicit ASMR. And what my results are showing me is that it's hard to find out from those descriptors. But if you ask someone, did you experience ASMR? The people who do will tell you yes. And the people who aren't sure will tend to say no. And most of the responses I got from interviews I will say it does kind of mirror the data that I got, which is that by far most rankings for any of the descriptors are more towards the 1 side than the 5 side, or 5 being highly experienced, like I was very relaxed, or 1 being I was not very relaxed. And that, like, out of all the people I've interviewed, fewer people experience ASMR from any of the pieces, but there are some. And that does mirror what the research has shown, which is that we don't know the exact number, but the guesses are that between 20 and 30% of people experience ASMR. Also, what does my research prove, if anything? Well, I was only really able to test graduate music students at LSU. So I can tell you that some graduate students at LSU found ASMR experiences by going through my pieces. So, and I myself have experienced ASMR from these pieces. So in one way I've answered my question, can I create art that elicits ASMR? Yes, I can. And then let's see. I'm not really testing for the art so much, even though I put a lot of thought into the art. The only thing I'm really testing for is ASMR. Does that make sense? Okay, thank you. Yes, Natalie.
Would you consider testing content that isn't necessarily aimed at being ASMR, like content like painting restoration or instrument building?
Yeah, well, that's some of my favorite ASMR content is finding a video that's not branded as ASMR and you're like, oh, this is really relaxing. That's actually kind of what a lot of popularization of ASMR happened with Bob Ross videos. People would watch Bob Ross painting. And like the gentle sounds of his brush on the canvas and his sort of low, soothing voice and manner of speaking was very comforting to a lot of people. Also, it helps that people of that generation, were 6 when his program was airing, and so he's their sort of default babysitter from back then. So there's certainly nostalgia there, and that probably would have been useful to add to the study to compare. So I showed you a video that claims right up front to be an ASMR video. It says, I'm an ASMR video. Well, what about some other videos? Yeah, that's a good idea. I didn't do that, and I hadn't thought of it, honestly. So I'll take credit for that idea, though, when I read this.
Garden restoration, check them out.
I love that channel. I do watch Baumgartner Restoration. It's a great channel. Yeah, keep going.
I have
Got it,
more
yeah.
questions. So you run some statistical analysis in some of the slides about people perceptions, the emotions, the feelings, etc. And how would you like to use and analyze those yourself? But one way that I think I could suggest is running a one-way ANOVA test to test whether, one-way ANOVA is essentially a test analysis of variance, and you test a null hypothesis, the H0, whether or not you find a significant difference between the needs of different, feelings,
Yes.
type of feelings. And I think that it will be a pretty good way, and also you could run a two-piece tables to find, is there specific groupings of feelings?
Yeah.
And how does those feelings that in the same group relates to each other?
Right. So like someone who selected, they ranked relaxedness and nostalgia really highly on one piece. What's the significance there? Right, yeah. The one that I got closest to with significance in the tests I've run so far was a chi-squared test on whether someone has experience with music and whether they think they experience ASMR coming into the experiment. And I had significant numbers, but then I ran more tests and they became insignificant. So I don't want to say that was a significant data point. Yeah. Oh, yes, Dr. Beck.
So I had a couple of questions. First was, do you have data that's granular enough that you could say, so for example, with the chewing one, that some samples provide some kind of ASMR, others don't, or that there are different qualities of ASMR to the different kinds of sounds that you're presenting?
Even within the chewing?
Even within the chewing piece?
No, I don't. No, that would be interesting. I'll say with that piece, though, a lot of the sounds are kind of similar. You probably noticed in the Shoekeeper piece that, a tapir eating a sweet potato sounds kind of like a rhino eating a sweet potato. Sorry. So that would be interesting, though, but I haven't collected data that granular.
I guess the point that I was trying to get to was, are there things that in the data that you have collected, the things that indicate certain kinds of sounds that are more likely to lead to ASMR experiences than other sounds?
Not in the survey, but in the interview, yes. So anecdotally, I heard from some people that they experienced tingles in any of the content that was very focused in the high frequency range or the very low frequency range. So for example, with the control YouTube piece, you kind of just got to go hear it. There's a lot of sounds where really crinkly, tiny, high sounds are being produced. And a lot of people, there's several people that who are people that get tingles or purport to get tingles. Just explicitly said the high frequencies are what did it for me. And then a few of them said, and this has to do with the close miking, the proximity effect comes in and you hear every once in a while some really low rumbles, like with the tiger we heard. Some people would say that would give them ASMR. Similar to like Bob Ross with his manly voice, right? Like, so low frequencies and high frequencies. I've never heard anybody say mid-range frequencies elicited ASMR for them.
So are those things that you could then apply to your compositional practice, your creative practice into the future in terms of wanting to create pieces that essentially, where you're essentially composing with ASMR experiences in addition to the musical sound interactions that are there?
Yes.
Is that part of where you're at? Part of what you're thinking about? Have you done anything with that yet? Kind of where
actually kind of the opposite. So with Shoekeeper, I actually put a bandpass filter on the sounds of the animals because I knew that they would be coming through little small cell phones. Right. So I actually got rid of low frequencies and sorry, it wasn't a bandpass. It was just a high pass filter. So I allowed most frequencies except the low end. But I mean, that might have happened anyway, just because the phone can't reproduce those. So I just told it, don't bother. Yes, absolutely. And actually there's a lot of, if you look on Spotify, people who are making music, they brand it as ASMR music. And these are things that they shoot for as high frequency content and low frequency content. as part of their composition process. But in any of the pieces that I did here, that wasn't a consideration. But absolutely, now that I've heard that from people in the interviews, specifically saying high frequencies, more so than low frequencies, were the thing. Now, at the same time, I don't want the pieces to just be an assault on people's ears with all these high frequencies happening. And it's actually kind of the space in between moments of ASMR that get amplified because there was space. And so then the moments that do shine through with high frequencies are more surprising. And actually, surprise is part of what both musical awe or aesthetic chills and ASMR share in common, is there's an element of anticipation and an element of surprise. Was there another?
No, well,
Okay.
I will call.
Yeah, Kerem.
On that note of like the high frequencies that trigger the ASMR effect, is it coming from our evolutionary developments of our ears and our senses due to the, when we were like still hunter-gatherers, the high frequencies tend to mean a danger is coming, especially sky, and also it just, in Marvel terms, spider tingles kind of a thing. Is there a correlation between that with our evolutionary development?
I can't speak about evolution, but I can say that what people have noted about ASMR is when you can't see a sound, but you can tell where it is and you can tell that it's close to you, like maybe I'm about to get hit by an arrow, that's when you start to get that sense. And have you ever done a thing where you close your eyes and you try to like put like your finger or a pencil near your face and you can kind of feel it? Well, it's partly because you know your hand is there. And so you're sort of just guessing, right? You can't really see it. So I think there is this sort of spidey sense to it, even with your eyes open. And then you hear a sound coming from behind you, like when a barber's cutting your hair. And this is something that people noted about almost all the experiences, is that the visuals, in some cases, amplified the experience. Like for the YouTube control video, some people were saying like, they got really uncomfortable because they were watching this guy paint this set of ears. Whereas if they had just closed their eyes, maybe it wouldn't have been quite so offensive to them. So there is a sense of, absolutely, I think, a correlation between like the directionality of a sound and knowing where it is, like trying to localize it. And as it gets closer to you, this is in all the pieces, as it gets closer to you, the ASMR, that sense of sort of like, I need to get out of here, shines through, absolutely. Brooke, yeah.
So ASMR seems to be one of those things that like you either love it or you hate it. So I'm kind of wondering how you are deciding bias on the people that you've been interviewing. Are you like upfront about like, hey, this is an ASMR experience?
Yes, I am. And actually, there have been people who've said, I don't want to participate in your study. And I said, why? And they said, because I hate ASMR. And I said, that's exactly the kind of person that I want to interview because I want to find out why you hate it. There's a few people here. Yeah, right behind you there. Oh, I'm Brooke too. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I'm excited, like, I want all sorts to respond to this survey so that I can find out just a better picture of what it is. And actually, I suspect that some people do experience ASMR in a heightened form such that it is uncomfortable, that the sounds are so sensitive or their hearing is so sensitive that it can actually cause physical pain in some cases, Morgan. And a few people mentioned this sort of fight or flight response that they had from hearing some of the sounds. Maybe, I'm seeing some nodding heads, maybe particularly with the shooting piece, right? Though actually, some people have said that, like Aaron, you said that you didn't mind the shoekeeper piece because you knew it was animal sounds. But if you knew that that was humans eating dinner, no, right? Yeah, that's not going to happen. Roberto.
On that note, I was fine with all the animal sounds, but that lady request that for me was like, no,
Yeah. The mukbang experience.
yes.
That was a hard pass. Okay, gotcha. Jesse, yeah, please.
I noticed in those examples, the mukbang one and then your control piece, where it's the highly amplified, close mic stuff, that it also amplified the room that they were in. The background noise is really, really present.
Yes.
In your pieces, though, you did things like made rain be the background, or I think you had music, Radio Baba.
Yeah.
Right, like, and you kind of replaced that and didn't do an amplified. I was wondering, if, like, did you have a reason for that, or was there what was your kind of?
So with Zookeeper, there was a few reasons I included rain. One thing that people who experience ASMR have said that they do is they, when they go to sleep at night, they'll put on a little noise-making machine that might make the sound of a waterfall, might make the sound of an airplane, or might make the sound of just some white noise or brown noise or pink noise. And what some people have guessed why that's satisfying or why that's comforting to people, I think the real answer is we don't know, but some people think that maybe it's because it reminds us of being in a mother's womb. These are the sounds we would have heard when inside someone. And so the rain in Zookeeper was a couple of reasons. There were background noises inherent in feeding the animals. And so in an effort to cover up some of those background noises, I included rain. And I thought that a dual purpose for that would be to include some white noise and hopefully make it sort of relaxing. And anecdotally in the interviews, the relaxing thing about the piece was not the mouth sounds of the animals, it was the rain. It sort of maybe soothes over some of those offensive mouth sounds a little bit. So maybe in doing so, I made it less intense, like where the video you mentioned, the YouTube video, is intentionally trying to be the most intense sonic experience out of everything. Yeah. Is that satisfactory?
Yeah.
That was cool. Yeah, go ahead.
I have two questions. Maybe you answered the first one, but why did you not get a heart rate and skin tension response material? And two, why did you not include disgust on your circle of responses?
That's a fair point. The reason I didn't include heart rate or skin conductance was that was part of my original scope. Deadlines creep up and you have to scale back. And so that was one of the things I scaled back in an effort to get my IRB submission approved by the school's IRB. So that's that answer. And then why did I not include disgust, where I did include like elation, right? Why didn't I include disgust? And then in some of the interviews, I did include disgust, or not include in the survey, but we talked about disgust. I suppose the reason I didn't is because none of the ASMR research talks about disgust. Oh, that's a fair point. Not a lot of it does, and maybe it should. It always talks about how relaxing it is and how soothing and comforting it is. But there's clearly a lot of people who don't like it. We got a few hands, Dr. Beck.
So I want to kind of divert a question, and I know this is not part of your study, but I would imagine you've thought about this, or I would hope that you would think about this, and I want to get your thoughts on it, that how ASMR can manifest itself in, for lack of a better word, composed music, that composed and produced recorded music or performed live music. There are surely, one could make an argument that there are moments where people respond to music in the same ways that you're measuring with these very intimate kinds of sounds. So I was wondering if you could comment on that relationship. Is it something that you want to, or we're going to move towards, or if not, is it something that you might think would be a logical direction to go, or have people done it?
So
I just don't know.
The descriptors I used are not exclusive to ASMR, are they? Like a music could elicit these things, that's what you're saying.
Right.
So as I was composing my pieces, it's interesting, like along with Dr. Giger's question earlier, like what am I really testing for? Am I testing for art? Am I testing for ASMR? I composed the pieces thinking that they would produce ASMR anyway, but when I was thinking about the art of the piece, it was more because I thought it was cool art. Like with Shoekeeper, I thought it would be ASMR just because it matches some of the same types of things you see in ASMR content. But what I liked about it was that to me it seemed novel and cool to listen to animals eating food. And then yeah.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to get at is that certainly I could be having no basis other than just my own experience and kind of in reading about how people talk about kind of certain genres of music. Things like kind of ambient electronic music could produce some of the ASMR environments or reactions that you've measured and seen here, just as much as noise music, intense noise music could do in both positive and negative ways.
Yes.
And so I guess that's kind of what I was.
Yeah, well, and so when I was originally conceiving, like, what am I going to do for my dissertation? This question of what is music and what is ASMR was one of the things that I actually emailed one of the leading researchers on ASMR. He says he's one of the leading researchers on ASMR. And when I asked, I sort of asked him some questions about my dissertation. My dissertation thrust originally was, can I create music that is ASMR or ASMR that is music? And what I sort of, after thinking about it and reading about it, like, I mean, any sound could be music. What we saw with the tea ceremony, I consider to be music. And when he responded to me, he sort of responded with this idea that the sounds we hear in ASMR are not the sounds we hear in music, that they are two different things. That music, he was using words like harmony and melody and these sort of basic elements that we talk about in music theory with music. And I was trying to tell him that the research that had been done so far using the word music was sort of narrow. For example, one of the studies that had claimed to have tested for can ASMR or can music elicit ASMR, and the only point of data they had was they had someone watch an electronic dance song on YouTube that to me it immediately seemed like it would not be conducive to ASMR, and yet this is the piece they used for their study. And they said the conclusion they drew was that it is not conducive to ASMR. And so and I was kind of like, no duh. And so I tried to kind of bring this up to him, and he still sort of had these ideas that, no, well, the music is what you hear on the radio, or music is what you hear when you go to the concert hall. And I was trying to tell him, well, but this is music. I'm trying to expand the definition of music here to include things like drawing on a piece of paper, or I was really August rushing it, with you hear the wind and like, oh, that's music, So yeah, that's my answer to your question. Oh, Drew, yeah.
In the future, or if you could go back and revise, would you maybe limit the scope of some of those descriptors to try to take out false positive sort of things?
There's a lot of them, weren't there?
Relaxing, I think, is kind of I don't know how much that can be indicative of anything, especially in a setting like the tea ceremony where it's the intent is to be
certainly
relaxed.
wasn't agitating, was it?
Yeah,
like no duh, it's relaxing.
Yeah, so I wonder if that's just noise in your data set at that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Absolutely, yeah. No, specifically the survey and the ranking of descriptors is something that I would absolutely do differently if I were to do this again. But I had, it'd been approved by the IRB and I had to go down the road. So I've gone down the road now, and I would do things with fewer descriptors. And I liked why not hone in on that discuss side of things? Like, what about negative reactions? That's something I ignored in this.
Where did the descriptors come from in the first one?
They're from research that I've read that mentions these words. Yes, Morgan.
Going still with the data, in your observations of it, when someone put like a 5 in one direction, was there other responses opposite to everyone else, like the standard, the status quo of the data? So if like someone put 5 on tingling, and then everybody else had like a 3 on relaxing, was their relaxing like a 1, completely opposite from everyone else? Did you see stuff like that start happening in the data?
I'll say any of the extremes that weren't low rankings, such as 4s and 5s, that person usually just put 4s and 5s for all of them. So I don't know how reliable those ones were. By far the most of the data was between 1s and 3s across the board. And whenever anybody put something as high as a 3, and there was a variance among all the other descriptors in their data set, it was just 1 or 2 that they picked. So relaxing and comfort were like 3s or 4s maybe, and then everything else was a 1. And if there were high rankings, it was high rankings all around the board, which again, I have to ignore those ones, I think. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, thank you guys, appreciate it. Bye.